Taylor with AgriSpray Drones. So you've seen our other video on a J150 spraying small fields, but this is a big drone, and a big drone should be spraying big fields. At least that's what I think, and that's where the efficiency comes in at. Obviously, shorter passes, smaller fields, you're not going to be able to get the efficiency you can on a half-mile long row. But there are different challenges from big fields to small fields, and so if you're doing half-mile rows or mile rows, what are those challenges going to be? Well, I'm going to show you guys a full demo of a J150 spraying a half-mile long, big, wide open field here in the river bottoms. And we're going to try to do a time lapse actually, where you can see the entire process start to finish in an hour-long segment of time from the first takeoff to the last. That way you guys can see how many acres per hour we're actually getting in these larger, big open fields. So we're going to start over here on the remote, and I'll show you guys the settings, the parameters that we're running. So we'll set our template here, our 2 GPA template, 300 microns, 2 gallons per acre. We're going to set our flight speed up to 45 feet per second. Make sure our bypassing is on, going in the field and coming back out of the field. We'll set our height going back out to 16 feet. And then on our route spacing, we're going to set a 36-foot swath. We've done testing and it shows that we've got a good pattern all the way out to 40 feet or more, depending on what parameters. And with these parameters, 36 feet should be good. And we'll change our start point to go to the far corner first. Our route direction looks good. We shouldn't need a safety point. Auto spray. Double check our parameters. We usually like to set our battery to warning on these big open fields, just in case it gets low battery on its spraying its way back. We can have more control over it then. Now, I don't recommend that everybody does this unless you're a very experienced pilot. Okay, we're good to go. We're going towards the corner of that barn there, so I'm just going to pick it up a little bit higher with my left stick as it goes past that barn. Always like to be a little bit more cautious than maybe I need to be whenever we're going in and out of the field with obstacles. Okay, we should be good there. All right, so this is all autonomous flight here. You guys have seen how the J150 and many spray drones are operating the same way. If you're new to the spray drones, basically we had a boundary on our screen already. Now, how do we get that boundary on this screen? We just used Google Maps imagery on the remote right here. You see we have Google Maps imagery, and we just tapped the 4 corners in. And now this is just so we can get a square field so we can show you guys what a demo of a square or rectangular big field would look like. If you're doing more complicated fields, there are plenty of ways to get your map on here. You can map using satellite imagery. You can map with another drone up in the air, Mavic or a Phantom or an Autel or any other drone. You can map with this drone. I mean, if you can think about a way, you can import your John Deere shape files. Any way you can think about mapping and getting your boundary, that's how you can do it. And then you saw I adjusted my route a little bit. I adjusted my route spacing and my start point. There's also a bunch of different ways to adjust your route spacing and your start point and your route direction and where you want the drone to actually fly. You can add in no spray zones, you can add in obstacles, you can do a lot of things on the software here. But for big open square fields, this is kind of all you have to do. It's not nearly as complicated as if we're spraying small cut up fields with lots of terraces or waterways or anything through them. So honestly, it gets kind of boring here. Now, one of the jobs that you do have on these big fields is battery management, because battery life is important to manage whenever you are constantly flying back-to-back flights. And on these big fields, you can do back-to-back flights all day long. So you can see here, we're starting off, we got a battery in the drone. We have 3 batteries right here. I'm actually going to remove one of these batteries because most of you guys are going to be operating not with 4 batteries total, but with 3 batteries total. We're going to put one of these batteries back here just so you can see how we manage our 3 batteries. If you're starting a field, you're going to be operating with 3 fully charged batteries right from the start. And so you can operate like this on these half-mile runs by letting your batteries fully charge for usually about an hour. Now what you run into though on battery management with these big fields is your cycle times, your takeoff to takeoff times on the drone start to become are shorter than your cycle times on your charger, because you only use, maybe between 40, maybe 60% to maybe 70% of your battery, but you're doing that in a short period of time, so as to charge from 40 or 30% up to full in a very short period of time. And that the beginning and the end of a battery cycle is always fixed. You can't really gain efficiency there because that's kind of your initiating cycle, and that is your at the end of it, that is when it is actually putting a little bit of power into the battery and balancing the cells. So what we do is we actually connect our remote to our charger and we monitor our battery percentage, and we pull our batteries early on these big fields. That way we can keep up with 3 batteries nonstop all day long. I don't care where you're at. If you're pulling your batteries at about that 98%, you're going to save 45 seconds per battery charge, which is about perfect for a 1-to-1 charge time to cycle time. Okay, so drone's flying here, and we have our camera screen. Camera's on a gimbal. We can move that up and down. It is a virtual gimbal. There's no moving parts in the drone. There you can see on the bottom side, we've got our height, our speed, the distance away from the home point that we are. And you can see where the drone has flown right there in the blue lines, and then where it's going to fly there in the white lines. And right there in the top right, see we're down to about 2 gallons. So I may actually bring it back as soon as it turns around because it's going to go down just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my return to home button here and hit go home. That way we're not wasting flight time going down the field further. We can just bring it back on the close side of the field, and then we'll only put in about probably about 19 or 18 gallons in on the next run, because we don't need that other 2 gallons in there. This is autonomous flight back in here. You see, once it gets home, it's going to spin. I'm going to take over manual control now. I'm going to bring it down manually myself. I kind of prefer to do this, that way I can control where the drone goes and when it goes. All right, time for battery and refill. Now you notice I land the drone facing away from me, and that's so my battery is as close to me as possible, because these batteries weigh 45 pounds. Not super light, but they do give us some pretty good flight time. And landing it like this makes it a little bit easier to change. You're not lifting it up and over an arm, you're not worried about hitting a prop, and it puts the battery right next to your leg. And so if you're deadlifting something, you want that weight right next to your leg, not out here in front of you. There's big drones that have their batteries kind of in the center, and you have to reach over and put them in the center. So having it right here is kind of nice for that ergonomic lifting. I'll watch on the side. We'll get to kind of right up here between 65 and 70, and that should be good enough for us. I'm going to get that battery right back on before you take off. That way it has a chance to start charging as quick as possible. Swipe right. All right. Now, while the drone's out there headed back out, I'm gonna go ahead and connect my charger to Bluetooth. That way I can monitor it from my operations screen. So from this screen here, we can go to the very top and click on the drone icon that takes us to our device manager, and then hit our charger button, hit click to connect, and it's gonna scan, it's gonna find our charger we have connected here. And then we can check all this stuff, including our power setting, make sure that we are pumping the juice to the charger as much as we can. These chargers are going to pull 13,000 watts, which is going to require a decent sized generator. And then we can also monitor our battery charge level from our operations screen. There you see here we've got 39% battery, now 40% battery in the battery in the charger, 80% in the battery in the drone. And this makes it really nice. That way, when the drone's coming back home to you, you can see how much battery you have left in the charger, decide whether you want to pull it then or wait till it lands, or just leave it in the charger and use your third battery without having to actually look at your charger and decipher what 4 lights mean. All right, and you can also check your battery temperature too, which during long hot days running back to back to back, it's pretty important to keep an eye on your battery temperature. We don't have our fans on right now on these batteries. It might sound like it in the video, but that's with fans off. The fans are pretty loud. Now they do a really good job at keeping batteries cool, but they do get kind of loud. So you saw me, I went to device, I went to charger, and I went to charging terminal. You see our battery temperature is 122 right now, and that's fine, but you see it's kind of rising as it's adding that power into the battery. So we're gonna keep our fans off while we have the camera rolling here. You're hearing me talking, and then we'll turn them back on whenever I turn the camera off. I highly recommend that you always run your fan on your charger in auto mode. Don't run it off for too long. So, we talked about having a 36-foot swath. If you're not familiar, if you haven't watched our other content on what how drone swath is created, I'll describe it really quickly. The drone's obviously not 36 feet wide, and we only have 4 nozzles on the drone. So how are we getting a 36-foot swath? It's all about speed, height, and prop wash. So you have air blowing down through the props. It's actually down and pushing out, kind of recirculating back up, back through the props. And then as you're traveling forward, that motion becomes a trailing motion. So it's a trailing vortex, wingtip vortex behind your props. It's actually pushing those droplets out. And it all depends how fast you fly, how high you fly, what micron size you run, product, and of course wind and all that kind of stuff too make a difference. That's why we do extensive third-party testing. You can check that out on our website. It'll be under our Knowledge Hub for J150 swath testing. And this drone really surprised us. We've been doing the same swath testing for 4 years now. We've never seen a drone that has produced this consistent of a wide pattern across many different parameter changes, but it only happens from running 4 nozzles. It's all about fluid dynamics. And this drone has that. Running 4 nozzles, it seems to work very, very well. And that's been ground truth out in the field. These 150s, this isn't our first time flying this one. We have, by the end of today, we'll have 12,000 acres on this drone flying right now. And we have over 35 other pilots that have been running these drones for the past month and a half or 2 months by the time you're watching this. And they've ground truth the wide pattern on a J150. All right, here the drone's making its last pass here, or its next pass here, I should say. And we're gonna go ahead and hit that home button, bring it back. This is why battery management is very important. The drone's coming back home to us. Now this battery has 70% in it. Now it did have to fly a little ways to get out there. Its deadhead time was a bit longer. We flew up and over that barn. and we had a fully loaded tank whenever it took off. We didn't actually need those 2 gallons. So payload management is a factor of battery management, especially on these big fields. Only putting as much as you need in the tank is pretty important. All right, grab our 3rd battery, fill the drone up. Make sure when you're putting your batteries in, push down. Don't drop them in, set them in, and then push down. That protects your terminals, and make sure that you don't, pinch a terminal or twist a terminal or break a terminal, and that your batteries are fully seated down. You're getting all the power from the battery into the drone. We should be good at about 70 liters now. We had about a gallon extra that last run. Confirm. There you go. I like how quick the cycle times are on the 150 with that internal battery. It's always ready to go when you get back to the remote. You can see we, after 11,000 acres, probably a few things we tightened up on this drone. Our landing gear is kind of starting to vibrate a little bit. I noticed we had our rear radar bracket was kind of cocked sideways. I don't know who transported this drone to the Farm Progress show, but they may have tweaked a few things either on the way there or on the way back. All right, so here we're watching our battery. We're at 95% now on this battery. So we'll get to about 96, 97. Then we'll pull this battery and switch it. And then we should get a bit better on our battery cyclings because our next battery came back with a bit higher percentage. Okay, we're about 97% there. And we've talked with EA about it, and they said it's completely okay to pull batteries early, as long as they have 4 full lights on them. You're good to pull them early because that last part's really just the balancing of the cells. Okay, I'll turn these fans on. So we're running batteries back to back to back like this. Always want to make sure you keep them cool. There we can see we are already at 43% on this battery. So not having that extra gallon that you don't need is going to make a big difference when it comes to operating on big fields and keeping up with battery charges. All right, so during operation with the J150, you can change parameters. Left-hand side here, if I hit my flight data and then I hit modify parameters, the settings icon, I've got, I can change my micron size, my volume, my height, and my speed. And you notice here, our height on this field, it looks like it's running about 2 feet lower than our setting is. So we're actually gonna raise that up, and we'll run this at 12 feet instead of 10. Hit confirm, and that's going to increase the height on the drone out there. There you can see my height on my screen is raising up. There I'm running at about 11 to 12 feet. So we'll actually do, let's run that at 11. That should be getting us at about 10 feet. Same thing with micron size, volume, and speed. And the micron size right now, we're putting out 300 microns right now on the drone. And that is currently the highest setting in the remote. Now, we're pretty sure that 300 microns on this drone is actually a bit bigger than 300 microns, judging from other drones that we've run in the past and from our droplet testing. But more testing needs done. We're working with EA right now to actually either get that changed in the remote or actually have different discs and lower RPMs to add a wider range of micron size. Because we can go from anywhere from 300 or 10 microns to 300, and For spraying herbicide, we know that we need higher microns, and especially if it's hot out, spraying low volume, we need higher microns, or that's what most people want. However, our pattern at 300 or 200 looks phenomenal. There you can see the old girl showing her age. We've had this upward rotating radar no communication error on our remote for about the past 5,000 acres, and it's still working just fine. At least it seems to be. Usually, whenever you've got warnings on the J150, you've got basically 3 color levels. You've got gray. You might see a left nozzle pop up that shows gray. Gray is basically nothing. That means like it's a very small blip in the communication. Orange is a bit more serious. That means it's kind of coming in and out potentially, or there may be something else, wiring that may not be plugged in all the way. And then red is basically completely gone. There's no communication with that certain component. The nice thing about the 150 is everything is separate from all your radars have separate plugs coming into the drone or coming into the CPU. Your spray system, your nozzles, all your flight motors, everything's separate. So if you have an error, you know exactly what that part is and how to diagnose it. Okay, it's about to its empty point, so we're just gonna let it go ahead and run out. There it is. This is an automatic. It ran out by itself, and now it's going to come home by itself too. When you're on this screen here, you can just hit the X button, and it's going to continue coming home. All right, there you see we're at 80% on this battery, so I got a charged battery here I'll grab. Always make sure you turn these batteries off before pulling them out. Turn them off before putting them in, turn them on after they go in. Because your tank's gonna take longer to fill up than your battery is gonna take to swap, so why not just play it cautious. There again, we're only gonna need just over about 65 liters on this run here. Somewhere between 65 and 70 should be all we need. Okay, and here you can see we're already at 92%. So by the time this drone makes it about halfway down, that battery will be good to pull. And that is kind of nice for your cycling, where you're not busy whenever that battery needs change. If that battery needs change whenever the drone needs filled up, then that kind of can throw it off a little bit. Okay, guys, you saw a lot already. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and start speeding this thing up. We're gonna get the time lapse going. That way you guys can see what a full, complete hour looks like using these same 3 batteries on this same field with this same drone. Okay, we'll catch you in a minute. All right, drone just landed about, I don't know, a minute ago. And we've got technically one more pass here, like just one singular pass on this field. but we're going to skip that and close this out. We've flown, well, this is 112 acres. That's what we've flown from the start of a video all through that time lapse up till now. That was 74 minutes of flight time. Now, that's not including ground time, so I don't know how much ground time that adds. We'll look at and see our actual efficiency from our records a bit later. All right, here is the data on what you guys just watched. Our hour long, or actually in this case, it was longer than an hour of operation, about an hour and a half, so we actually did. And if you're looking at my screen right now, this is the operation right here. You can see our field. It actually ended up being 118 acres because we did have one last pass over here on the right-hand side that we finished up. Wasn't going to, just to cut the video short, but we ended up spraying it after you guys watched the video, just one last pass. And that's took us 118 acres in 98 minutes. And this is actual total time, not just time in the air, but total time from start to finish of the operation. So from the first takeoff to the last landing, it counts all that time in between there. And so as far as acres per hour goes, we did 118.8 divided by 98.3 minutes. That's 1.2 acres per minute. Times 60 minutes, 72 acres per hour. So you're doing half-mile long square fields like we just did here, then that's probably what you're going to be experiencing, especially if you're able to move down the field as you go. And as far as batteries go, we just ran 3 batteries, 1 charger. We pulled them anywhere between 95 to 99%, and we could have kept going for many more flight cycles. That's the really tricky part, is trying to make sure that you always stay on top of your battery charging cycles whenever you're running 3 batteries with the J150 and 1 charger. So if you're doing a lot of big fields exclusively, then I would probably think about getting a 2nd charger and a 4th battery. That we don't have to think about it, right? Because if you forget to pull that battery before the fans shut off, that'll put you behind a little bit. Now, maybe that means waiting once every 45 minutes or an hour for about 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So not that big of a deal, but in the grand scheme of things, it would make a difference. So 72 acres an hour, 3 batteries, 1 charger, ran just fine, but 4 batteries and 2 chargers would make your life a bit easier in these situations. Okay, I hope that's informative. Thanks.